The accession process for Sweden and Finland has been the fastest in NATO's modern history. Nearly all allies have completed their national procedures. So, Prime Minister, I welcome your commitment to the trilateral memorandum signed by Turkey, Sweden and Finland to strengthen cooperation in the fight against terrorism. We all agree on the importance of the memorandum and the need to address Turkey's legitimate security concerns. I welcome the major concrete steps Sweden is taking to implement the trilateral memorandum, ending any restrictions on arms sales to Turkey, significantly enhancing cooperation on counter-terrorism, prohibiting participation in terrorist organizations, including the PKK, and working through the joint implementation mechanism on issues such as extradition and terrorist financing. We also agree that we must stand together as we face the greatest security crisis in a generation. President Putin is failing in Ukraine, but he has not given up on his brutal war of aggression. So I welcome Sweden's strong support for Ukraine with arms and ammunition, as well as humanitarian assistance. NATO and allies will continue to support Ukraine's right to self-defense for as long as it takes. So, Prime Minister, thank you again for being here today and for your strong commitment to NATO. I look forward to working with you and to welcoming Sweden and Finland as NATO members. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Secretary General, dear Jens. Thank you so much for hosting me here today. This is obviously not my first trip to NATO, but this is my very first trip inside the NATO headquarters. And I really hope to be able to be here much more in the future. Me and the Secretary General have had an excellent exchange on Sweden's application to join NATO and on the difficult security situation. We'll redouble efforts to implement the trilateral memorandum with Finland and Turkey. This is true before Sweden's NATO accession as well as after. The trilateral memorandum has established new platforms for cooperation in the fight against terrorism between Sweden and Turkey. Counter-terrorism is a priority for Sweden ahead of and after our accession to NATO. We take our commitments very seriously. As a NATO ally, Sweden will be fully committed to contributing to the security of the alliance with a 360-degree approach. We will act in accordance with the obligations that follow from our membership, including NATO's nuclear doctrine. We will always act in support of upholding the European security order. Membership of NATO will become a central part of Sweden's foreign, security and defence policy. I have also informed the Secretary General of our efforts to strengthen our military defence. We are committed to reach NATO's goal of national defence spending in relation to GDP as soon as possible.
Okay, we have time for some questions. We'll go to SVT.
Hello. Yep. The process, is there something that you two can do, or is it just a waiting game for Mr. Erdogan?
Well, what we do together is that we ensure that the agreement that was signed between Turkey, Finland and Sweden in Madrid is implemented. And I welcome the efforts that Sweden has already made to implement the agreement, not only by stating clearly that they are ready to step up cooperation regarding the fight against terrorism, but actually also strengthening the Swedish legislation, including by the prohibition of membership in terrorist organizations, including PKK, lifting restrictions on arms exports, and also establishing the permanent mechanism, which is a platform to exchange more information and also to do more when it comes to intelligence and also in sharing the intelligence between the countries involved. So the The good news is that what we have seen so far is the fastest accession process in NATO's modern history. 28 allies have already ratified the agreement, and we also have to remember that Finland and Sweden are in a very different place now than before they applied for membership, with more NATO presence in the Baltic region. Sweden and Finland are integrating into NATO's civilian and military structures, and it is inconceivable that the NATO allies will not act if there is any form of pressure against Sweden and Finland. Maybe you want to add something?
Well, I fully agree, of course, and just to say the obvious, that we are very committed to the agreement between Sweden and Finland and Turkey, and we are doing everything we can as soon as possible to fulfill all the obligations in it. Just wanted to stress the fight against terrorism is of fundamental importance in this agreement.
Swedish Radio.
Thank you very much, Andreas Lider on Swedish Radio. Two questions, one for you each, if I may. First of all, to Prime Minister, what can you and the new government do in order to speed up the process, and especially in the talks with Turkey? What can you give to Turkey that the previous Swedish government couldn't give? And to Secretary General, if I may, what more do you expect now from the new Swedish government? And since this is for Swedish listeners, may I ask you, feel free to answer in Scandinavian if you like.
For the rest of you, you may learn some Swedish, I'm afraid. I grund och botten fortsätter vi det arbetet som har påbörjats. Det påbörjade vi ju i maj i mycket bred enighet. Vi är alltså 6 partier i Sverige av 8 som står bakom detta. Mycket nära samarbete mellan den regering som nyss har avgått och den som nu har tillträtt. For the rest of you, may learn some Swedish, I'm afraid. I grund och botten fortsätter vi det arbetet som har påbörjats. Det påbörjade vi ju i maj i mycket...
To repeat my colleague's question because I don't speak Swedish. Not yet. You said you would redouble the efforts of the Swedish government. Are you going to do more than the previous government? And what exactly are you going to do to address Turkey's security concerns? That's the question. And how fast are you going to do this?
Well, the short answer is obviously that we now is implementing new legislation, and that could mean a lot for our possibilities to fulfill our obligations according to the agreement. So that's a short answer. The agreement in itself is what it is, and we are fully committed to it, as was the former government. But I think we now have more tools to actually prove in practice that we are delivering what we were promising.
From Bloomberg, thanks so much for the question. Secretary General, I want to ask about the situation in Ukraine, if I may. Does NATO have any evidence that Iran is sending missiles to Russia in an effort to aid its war in Ukraine? Thank you.
I never go into the specifics of our intelligence, but what I can say is that every indication points to Iran supplying Russia with these drones. And we call on all nations, and including Iran, to not support Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. This is a war of aggression. It's a war which clearly violates international law, and it's an attack on the independent sovereign nation in Europe. And therefore, NATO allies and partners have provided unprecedented support to Ukraine, and we are stepping up our support at the Defense Ministerial meeting last week. Several NATO allies announced new deliveries of air defense systems. Germany, the United States, the Netherlands, France and others are now in the process of delivering more and advanced air defense systems to Ukraine. And of course the horrific attacks we have seen by these drones just highlights the urgency stepping up support for Ukraine. Fundamentally, what we see is that Russia's war, President Putin's war in Ukraine is failing. President Putin made a big mistake by invading Ukraine. He was forced to withdraw from the territories in the north around Kiev. Then he launched a big offensive in Donbass. That offensive has been stalled by the brave Ukrainian forces, and now the Ukrainians are actually able to take back territory and liberate Ukrainian land, and we support them in doing so.
Dagens nyheder.
Sorry, I just want to follow up. The question was about missiles specifically. Is there any evidence about missiles being sent to Russia? Thank you.
Was it about drones? No, sorry. It is fundamentally the same answer that we don't go into specific intelligence, but we are of course monitoring closely what Iran are doing when it comes to also providing any support to Russia, and we call on Iran not to provide neither drones nor missiles, and any supplies of missiles will also be in clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions.
Okay. Dagens nyheder, the last question.
Okay. Yes, please, Dagens Nyheter here. Two questions. Do you have a meeting planned with Viktor Orban or Recep Tayyip Erdogan because of the process of ratifications? And also, will the discussions with Turkey be more easy when we have a male prime minister, a male foreign minister, and a country that doesn't push for feminist foreign policy?
Well, thank you. I won't try to guess or to interpret Turkey's views on that, honestly. But on the first question, we have told the Secretary General that I'm very prepared to go to Ankara as soon as possible, and we will send that signal also to, and we have already sent that signal to our Turkish friends. And we discussed what timetable will be suitable for that trip. So that's in my plan. Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all we have time for.
Can I ask a question to the Swedish Prime Minister, please? Just one.
Up to him.
In the bilateral agreement, there is a section which says that you are going to have a structured dialogue. How is the structured dialogue working? Is it progressing? Can you describe it?
Well, honestly, I haven't been in office for 2 days, so I can't. I don't have the full insights in everything yet. I have to admit, but we have had a very good dialogue with the resigning government, or the former government, and as far as I can tell, that dialogue has been very well working, and we stick to that. As you know, I have asked the chief negotiator to stay in office and to fulfill his work, and all my impressions are that there is a good dialogue ongoing, and of course I will stick to that, and I will try to make it even better.
Thank you very much. This concludes this press conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Uyuyan milletler ya ölür ya da köle olarak uyanır.